My security clearance was stripped at 6 in the morning, right while I was balancing an untouched breakfast on my desk and patching a critical system failure. For 6 years, I had been the silent force behind our infrastructure, building the algorithms that turned an obscure tech firm into a massive acquisition target. Everyone relied on my work, but nobody in executive management ever bothered to learn my name. I was useful to them only as long as I remained completely invisible and quietly obedient. When the slick new director sent a coffee to my desk with a handwritten note telling me to skip the big investor meeting, I knew something sinister was brewing behind closed doors. They were preparing to sell our core software package for hundreds of millions of dollars without giving me a single shred of credit or compensation. What my arrogant supervisor did not realize was that I had protected my original code years before ever walking through their corporate doors. Long before joining this corporate circus, I had filed official intellectual property documents under a private holding entity that I still secretly owned. While corporate management paraded around claiming my technical breakthroughs as their own genius creation, the underlying foundation legally belonged to me. I sat silently at my desk as my access credentials slowly disappeared, knowing that every single line of code they were auctioning off was tied directly to my private company. The announcement came during a chaotic morning meeting where our director strutted across the room claiming he personally built our entire software architecture. He flashed shiny presentation slides and announced a massive corporate acquisition, completely ignoring the engineering team that actually built the platform. He arrogantly warned everyone outside the inner leadership circle to stay in their lane and refrain from speaking to external auditors. I sat quietly in the back row, holding back a smile because I knew precisely what was hidden in my desk drawer. In the bottom drawer of my desk sat a dusty folder containing the original provisional patent filings and active registration documents for my old private venture. That paperwork explicitly stated that any commercial usage or buyout involving my proprietary architecture required my direct authorization and a formal licensing deal. I had consistently paid the annual maintenance fees for my private business entity out of habit, transforming what felt like an ancient precaution into the ultimate corporate lever. My formal exclusion became indisputable when an abrupt system error blocked me from entering the very deployment directories I had maintained for over half a decade. When I confronted my supervisor in his spacious corner office, he merely smirked and told me the deal details were far above my pay grade. He treated me like a disposable cog in his machine, completely oblivious to the reality that he was standing on fragile ground that I personally owned. Instead of causing a scene or making empty threats, I quietly gathered my belongings and called my long-time patent attorney from the parking lot. We reviewed the original corporate onboarding paperwork and confirmed that I had never signed over my pre-existing intellectual property rights to the enterprise. The entire foundation of their multi-hundred-million-dollar buyout was built directly upon software that they had no legal permission to sell or transfer. My legal team advised me to stay completely silent until the multi-million-dollar deal reached its absolute boiling point right before execution. Over the next few days, I systematically collected every timestamp, commit log, and archived email thread proving that I authored the core software before my employment began. I watched from across the street as executive leadership presented my technical achievements to high-level buyers while giving themselves lavish promotions and celebratory praise. A trusted senior engineer inside the building confirmed that my supervisor had even renamed my custom software package after himself to impress the buying executives. He had no technical understanding of how the internal logic functioned and assumed that taking my name off the organizational chart erased my ownership. Real power does not come from fancy titles or public praise, but from the quiet authority of ironclad documentation and legal rights. Late one evening, sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by years of archived technical records, I officially authorized my legal counsel to file a formal demand notice. It was not an act of blind vengeance or petty sabotage, but a necessary stand to reclaim what was rightfully mine after years of disrespect. I signed the electronic legal documents, knowing that my quiet submission was finally over and that the entire corporate narrative was about to explode. The sudden legal notification landed in the buyer inbox right as my supervisor was boasting to industry journalists about our revolutionary proprietary tools. Within less than an hour, the purchasing firm froze all incoming communications and demanded an immediate explanation regarding my active patent claims. The high energy inside our corporate office instantly evaporated as executive management realized that their entire asset portfolio was completely paralyzed by a single engineer. While management scrambled to hide the chaos, internal legal representatives frantically reached out to me, desperately trying to downplay the situation as a simple misunderstanding. I calmly informed their chief counsel to review the original state filings before ending the call and allowing them to digest the consequences. The executive board immediately convened an emergency session, realizing that their golden acquisition target was rapidly falling apart at the seams. During a tense joint video conference with the purchasing team, my supervisor attempted to blame the engineering department for poor record-keeping and sloppy documentation. However, the buyer lead attorney held up my original patent filings directly to the camera and flatly stated that they could not purchase assets the company did not own. The acquiring firm issued an ultimatum, stating that all contract negotiations were indefinitely suspended until my private licensing rights were fully resolved. The multi-$100 million deal froze completely, transforming weeks of corporate arrogance into pure panic across the entire executive floor. My supervisor was quietly removed from his position pending an internal review, leaving behind an office full of useless promotional materials and stalled contracts. Shortly after the corporate collapse, my phone lit up with a direct message from the acquiring firm lead attorney, requesting a private meeting to negotiate licensing rights directly with me. I packed my laptop into my worn work bag and stepped out into the crisp morning air, feeling an extraordinary sense of freedom and calm control. The proprietary technology remained fully intact and operational, but it would no longer serve as a stepping stone for arrogant men who stole the work of others. As I walked toward the final settlement meeting, I knew that I had finally reclaimed my identity, my work, and the absolute respect I deserved.